Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of the Anime Banter podcast with your hosts Turtle, Sean, and Mike. Thank you for joining us today. How are you all doing?
We hit the big 2-0, baby. Woo!
Yeah, it's a pretty big milestone. I read an article that said most podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. And here we are, doubling it. So, to all the haters, I don't think we had any haters, but if we did, to all the haters, we are going strong.
We showed you.
So, what's new in everyone's world right now?
For me, it's Baldur's Gate 3. It's an absolutely insane game. Very fun. Highly recommend.
I was surprised that got delayed into September for PS5, but it got moved up for PC. I thought that was a very odd move for them, but I've been hearing great things about that game.
Yeah, it is kind of odd how that happens. You know how these studios usually are. Usually, console release happens first, and then they're like, "Yeah, it might come to PC like in a year and a half from now." That's how it often goes. But this time the PC release came first, which doesn't always happen, and I'm down with that because that's where I'm playing it.
How about you, Turtle? Anything new in the world of the turtle?
Nothing super new. I did get a chance the other day to play some more Final Fantasy 16. I'm still playing that because I don't have a lot of time to play games anymore. Not as much as I would like anyway. But I'm playing that and working on writing a new song for a friend's game he's been working on for a long time. So,
Nice.
yeah, that's about it for me.
I haven't
Remember, Mike,
turned
give
my.
us your
Uh,
big
I was gonna
news.
say I haven't turned on my PS5 in at least a week. Main reason being I just got back from Gen Con recently, so
Woo!
it was my
Woo!
fifth trip now. My very first Gen Con was Gen Con 50 back in 2017. Was that 17? Yeah, 17. And I absolutely fell in love with it after my first year. So I went in 17 and 18, didn't go in 19. 20 didn't happen because of COVID. And then I've been there every year since 21. And 2021 was great because there were still COVID restrictions. So it was like half, if not like a third of the usual crowd. So you could actually like walk around and like easily demo games, which was great. But this year was the first year they removed all COVID restrictions. So masking and vaccinations were not required, they were optional. My wife and I did wear masks. I was actually surprised at the small amount of people that did wear masks. I didn't think it would be 50-50, but I thought it'd be at least maybe like 25-30%. And I want to say it was probably 5 to 10. So that was interesting. But before the con even started, they were estimating 85,000 people would be there this year. So, which is, and as it was leading up, I'm part of a Facebook group that like just it's all fans of Gen Con, and there were more events scheduled this year than the record breaking year of Gen Con 50, and I believe more attendance this year than Gen Con 50. Um, but my wife and I got super lucky. We got a hotel that was connected to the convention center.
Oh,
So
nice.
we were literally across the street. It was fantastic.
That is mandatory.
That's
Like, oh
It,
huge.
my gosh, the best experience when you can buy stuff and drop it right off at your hotel and come right back and have fun. Oh,
it'll probably be the one and only time I'm ever in a Westin, and it was amazing.
I bet it was
Uh,
crazy expensive though.
Not too bad because we got it through the Gen Con hotel portal, and they must do blocks. They do blocks with various hotels, so they must get some sort of like con rate to make it cheaper than usual. Because, for instance, I won't give the specific numbers, but our stay at the Westin before the hotel portal went live, we picked up a reservation at a La Quinta, which was about like 3/4 of a mile away from the convention center. So decent walk, but still doable. It would have been more expensive staying at the La Quinta outside of the block than it was for us to stay at the Westin, right
Wow.
across the street. Yeah. So I mean, you have to get very lucky to get the hotel we did. I got a very good number for the hotel portal this year. They do a lottery for pretty much all their things. Like badges can just go on sale and you can buy those pretty much whenever. Like for instance, 4-day badges and Saturday badges didn't sell out until Friday. But when it comes to buying event tickets and the hotels, they do a lottery system for that just because so many people are on at one time trying to get those.
Yeah.
But if you're a board game fan, I would highly, highly, highly recommend going to Gen Con at least once in your life. It's become a yearly tradition for myself, and I'm hoping to keep that tradition alive in 2024. I have Gen Con traditions now when I go. There's a restaurant bar that I found when I first went, and I go every year now for. They have cheese filled breadsticks with pepperoni, and they're amazing. So I try and go at least once every year. That bar is called Kilroy's. It's right down the road. Sun King. There's a big block party with food trucks. Try and hit those up multiple times. I've done brewery tours through Gen Con, and obviously just playing games and hanging out with friends and buying new games. Came home with a decent amount this year. Not, it was definitely less than previous years, which is probably good. And most importantly, picked up some Disney Lorcana while I was there. Got one of each starter deck and two booster boxes while I was there. And you can find the box openings of those boxes up on our YouTube page, the Anime Banter podcast on YouTube. Definitely tired, definitely exhausted from Gen Con. We drove out Wednesday morning, came back Sunday morning, and I'm still. It's not. It's definitely not con crud. I think having the mask helped with that, but just not sleeping in my own bed, all the driving definitely took its toll on me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely get con crud a lot of times after cons, and it's a combination of fatigue and being around, like you said, more than 50,000 people or whatever.
I I think the mask definitely helped fight off some of the con crud. So honestly, I don't feel like I haven't had con crud since I went back in 2018 from Gen Con just from
Awesome.
wearing a mask. Yes, it's I forgot how much of a pain in the ass wearing a mask could be, but coming home and not feeling sick and from either con crud or catching a sickness while at the con is absolutely worth it to me.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
And going back to Lorcana, would definitely recommend playing that card game because it's really fun and very easy.
Do you think it's the kind of game that is innovative enough to potentially have the longevity of large number of sets?
I mean, the IP is there with it being Disney. So this set is all their sets are going to be chapters, like a book. So this is chapter one. They already rumor has it they already have chapters 1 through 7 already planned out.
Oh,
Awesome.
wow.
And they plan on doing, I believe, 3 or 4 releases a year. So they have at least 2 years worth of content at the ready. And if Gen Con was any peek into it, it's going to catch on like wildfire. There was so Saturday, a buddy of mine and myself got in line to get a box of product. We got in line at 8:45 and the line was already outside. They opened the line at 6 o'clock the night before each day. Well, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Granted, it didn't really start getting busy until like 6, 7 a.m. the morning of, but there were like 10 or 15 people in line at 6 o'clock at night each night.
That's crazy.
I'm surprised they had enough product.
I think they obviously sold out each day, but I don't think the booster boxes, the starter decks, and the accessories, those went pretty quickly. But the booster boxes, I think they had those in stock until like 2:30 every day. They definitely brought a ton of it, which is good.
Oh, did they cap how many each person could buy?
Yes and no. The reason I say that, so before the
Just
con
get back in
started,
line.
well, before the con started, they're like, okay, everyone will be limited to one of each starter deck, one booster box, and one of the accessories, like one of the playmats and one of the sleeves, one of the binders, one of the deck boxes. And they're like, we will be hole punching your badge after you purchase, so you can't purchase multiple days.
Oh wow.
Well, they said that, and then Thursday, I didn't even bother because the line was outrageous. I'm like, I'll just try and get it another day. If I don't get it, no big deal. Friday, I was doing an event with friends, and my wife got in line, and she got a booster box. But everything at that point, everything else was sold out. And she waited in line for about 50 minutes, and they didn't clip her badge because they didn't have all the product available to purchase. Then on Saturday, my buddy and I got in line, and they didn't. We each got one starter deck and one booster box, and they didn't clip our badges because we didn't purchase our purchase limit. But we had friends behind us who didn't purchase their purchase limit, and they did clip their badges. So it felt like on Saturday, it felt very much of a who did you go to in line, and if how generous were they in clipping and not clipping your badge.
Wow.
I was wondering how they were going to monitor who had and had not purchased prior, and because originally they just said, "Oh, these purchase limits are for the entire show." I'm like, okay, are they going to scan your badge? Are they going to write your badge down in like a database? Like, and then they came out and said they were going to either hole punch it or take scissors and like clip a corner of your badge off.
Yeah.
I mean, I get trying to distribute as evenly as and fairly as possible, especially because like the game's not officially out yet, to give everybody a chance to get some product to learn how to play, and so that makes sense. But that's kind of wild that not everybody got punched, and some people did get punched. It's just
I
chaos
mean,
out there, man.
it was chaotic, especially Thursday. So Thursday with Gen Con, you obviously can't get into the vendor hall until 10 a.m. each day. And there are, besides like for most Gen Con, there are no official lines for vendor halls in Gen Con before the vendor hall opens. People sort of made their own unofficial, official Disney Lorcana line. And whenever the vendor hall was getting ready to open, they told them, yeah, that's not a real thing. Like, that's not a real line. So people were obviously pissed that they waited in line starting at like 4 in the morning on
Oof.
Thursday and to find out the line they were in was not an official line. So that's when Thursday night Gen Con's like, okay, here is an official Disney Lorcana line.
I'm kind of shocked that they didn't plan to make a line.
It was shot like so Ravensburger makes other games. They're the people they make a lot of puzzles. They make the Villainous series board games. And I was really surprised that they didn't at least move the Lorcana stuff into its own room or another location. So like for the people that wanted Lorcana, they wouldn't be just taking up space from the Ravensburger booth or taking up line space for other booths. Because I heard people saying, "Oh, I want to go to Ravensburger to get this game or this puzzle, but I don't want to wait through the Lorcana line to do it." So they would either have to go back at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon to get that stuff, or I guess they had a little vendor that I don't really know many people knew about in the gaming hall area.
Yeah. I mean, with having some experience in like a vendor hall, I think some people might say, "Oh, it'd be really good to be next to a gigantic booth like Lorcana because a lot of people are looking at your stuff." And my retort is, more people see your stuff and they don't care because they're there for Lorcana. And
That's a
honestly, they will do anything to avoid the giant crowd.
that's a fair point.
Today, we are talking about episodes 9 and 10 of Vinland Saga Season 1. Episode 9, The Battle of London Bridge. Begins, and Askeladd is sort of like tuffing at his hair on his chin. He's just sort of doing the old thinking man pose, if you could say. And we see the beard hair is falling out. And I was wondering, it's like, okay, well, how long has this been happening for? And is he sick? Is this just an getting old thing? Is it a stress thing? Thought that was a very interesting scene to open the episode.
I definitely think they're going for the aging thing here.
And we sort of see that in episode 10, not to jump too far ahead, with whenever he's talking to Thorfinn about everything.
He almost looked a little thinner to me as well.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, not substantially thinner because he was always pretty thin, but you can definitely tell he's aging pretty rapidly. So we learn that Thorkel is on the opposing side now, and Askeladd and Bjorn call him a traitor. And when they're like, "Oh, Thorkel's on the opposite end," I'm like, "Is this the same Thorkel that fought alongside Floki and Thor's before Thor's left the Jomsviking? Or is this just a another Thorkel because Thor whatever just seems like a common name in this show?"
I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, wow, another guy named Thor. Surprise, surprise.
If you want your child to be successful, you just name them Thor blank. Fill in the blank.
And we had no real knowledge if this was the same Thorkel or not because we never saw that Thorkel in episode 1. They just talked about Thorkel. Askeladd Fetchit calls for Thorfinn and said, "Okay, I want you, Thorfinn, to fetch me Thorkel's head." And Thorfinn's like, "Fine, but I want a reward." And it's just sort of funny how, like, Thorfinn and Askeladd know exactly what each other wants. Like, Askeladd's like, "Again? Like, why don't you want anything else? Like, why do you keep wanting vengeance? Why do you keep wanting to duel and get your ass beat by me every time? Like, there has to be something else." Like, there's been a little time jump, so it's like, all right, how many times has Thorfinn dueled Askeladd that we have missed? Askeladd is seen rowing towards Thorkel and is casually bringing up their history together and how they used to be Jomsvikings together and how many fights and wars they've been in together. And then we're on back on Askeladd's boat, and him and Bjorn are wondering if Floki is trying to buy Thorkel's services back by doubling the money, because they just assume Thorkel joined the English forces due to the money.
Yeah, it's so far Thorkel's just insane. But it's kind of funny. He's like, there's a bunch of like city pretty boys. Yeah, he pretty much just insults the English to their face. But I guess they don't understand what he's saying because different language and all.
They did have that really cool scene where like uh Thorkel is talking to Floki and the English were like, What's he saying?" But again, it like for us, it's all in one language, so it's without that little side comment, we wouldn't have known. But I still think that's really funny that they're doing these, multiple languages where not everybody understands, and they got to have that one character be like, "What's he talking about?"
Good point out, Turtle, because we saw that earlier whenever Thorfinn goes up and is talking to um with the Franks. He goes up to the camp. He just starts talking to them, and they're like, "What's this kid saying?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, like to us, they're speaking all the same language for the purposes of the narrative, but in actuality, they're speaking separate languages." And I think it's a really some people might be like, "You don't have to tell us every time I'm speaking different languages," and I'm like, "No, I appreciate it because you never know if a character knows multiple languages. I bet Leaf does because the way he travels."
Good point.
Plus, you don't know who has and who has not really paid attention to every episode. Like, they could easily have missed that in past episodes.
Yeah, true.
Thorkel is freaking massive. Like, Andre the Giant size. I know they call him Thorkel the Tall, but damn, that dude is a beast.
It's like an understatement just
Yeah,
calling him the tall.
like, he palmed that dude's head. Like, he just put his hand on it. It's like, oh, small head.
Yeah, tall definitely undersells.
I think about like you might think it's like too much, right? Because you're like, oh, you just palmed the guy's head. No way that happens in real life. And I think about like a basketball player holding a basketball. How they can just like palm a basketball and just like hold it in their hands. And I'm like, I can't do that. My hands aren't big enough to palm a basketball, like hold it face down while holding it at the top. So you just like, wow, look at that. It's not that unrealistic if the guy, has gigantism like Andre the Giant. But either way, I'm here for it. I love the design of the character.
I do too. And we learned that Thorkel was the man with the awesome axe throw at the end of episode 8.
Ah, good to know. I actually did not connect that.
I did not connect that either, but it does make sense.
I forgot there was a guy with an awesome axe throw at the end of episode 8. I'm not gonna lie, I just forgot.
So before we continue with the episode, one interesting note: Thorkel is voiced by Patrick Seitz, who is the Dio voice actor from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I recognize that name. He's been in quite a number of things.
Whenever he started talking, I'm like, man, this voice sounds so familiar. And sure enough, it was Dio.
Dio Brando.
You thought it was Thorkel, but it was I.
We see King Svain talking to Floki in a little flashback, and King Swain demands Thorkel rejoin the Danes. And King Swain is looking pretty old when we see him.
Yeah, dude
And
doesn't look okay. I'm going to the
no,
front lines. My dude, you should not go to the front lines.
and you figure the whole war started back up in what, March, I think, March or April, and it's October, November, so it's like it's only been like 5 or 6 months since we've last seen King Swain. It's like, oh, I mean, war is stressful and everything, but dang.
He kind of reminded me of like the Emperor from Return of the Jedi, where you look at him and like, oh, that's just a decrepit old man, but then he's gonna like throw off the cape and maybe he's gonna be absolutely amazing in a fight.
It could
I hope
happen.
unlimited power.
Just
Mm.
throws the axe. It acts like a boomerang. It just cuts off everybody's head with one toss.
He just shoots axes out of his fingers.
That's
It's like,
incredible.
but small axes,
It,
because I mean, you can only get so many. The size can't. Your fingers can't just like start shooting stuff out, but they could be like itty bitty axes
this
that
is
eventually death by 1,000 paper cuts.
very very historically accurate. I like it.
Yeah, the action in the show very accurate. Guy shooting axe out of his hand.
I found it in a book somewhere.
Power was never passed down beyond King Swain.
It was too great.
Yes. We learn that Thorkel only joined up with the English in 1013, and he was actually fighting against them up until 1012. And the only reason he joined them was because he was looking for a good fight. He didn't care about the money. He was just tired of always winning when he was fighting with the Danes.
This is a typical like shonen anime trope. I'm too strong. I'm so bored. I just want a challenge. I'm gonna be a jerk for a while and see what happens.
Accurate. Though I did like when he called out to the king. He's like, "Hey, you only ever fight battles that are easy for you to win. Why don't you fight a real challenge every once in a while?" And I was like, "Oh crap!"
Ooh, low
Nice
blow.
dropping smack. And King's not there, but still.
I mean, he
I
did yell pretty loud, so maybe the king heard.
I love how Thorkel just throws massive boulders all the time. Like the one he throws at Floki's ship is abnormally large, but like he just has like a pile of boulders that he just keeps throwing throughout these 2 episodes.
Yeah. This is where they start getting to like the goofy anime stuff. Because the dude's like, he's throwing rocks like cannonballs over at the enemy camp. Like that's how crazy it is.
Who does this guy think he is? Garp?
I don't know Garp.
I don't either.
Garp is a One Piece reference. Luffy's grandfather is Garp, and he literally throws cannonballs because he's a monster.
Well, no, we do know how One Piece goes, right? So,
I will
but this
say
is
I would
this is One Piece levels of ridiculousness, though, like whipping the rocks.
It is. I did kind of like it though. Historically accurate.
Definitely historically accurate.
Hey, it could happen.
It did. Historically accurate.
Exactly. I would have loved to see even a spar between Thor's and Thorkel. That would have been an amazing fight to see. Like not even to the death, just like a good sparring session.
Maybe we can get that in a flashback.
I mean, Thor's isn't as big as Thorkel, but he's gigantic. It would still be a fun thing to see.
Thor's doesn't have the size, but like we saw him in a couple battles, and like the dude was untouchable. Like, we see that even Thorfinn gets some hits in on Thorkel. And before that fight even happened, I'm like, oh, Thorfinn is fucked. It's like, well, show's ending. There's a new main character in episode 10.
Definitely an uphill battle.
Yeah, I was a little like worried myself there.
I absolutely loved the art in the fight between Thorfinn and Thorkel. I know we say it every time there's a fight, but Project Wit just nails the arts of the fight every time.
For sure.
Yeah, they've done a really good job with this show. I got to give them credit for that.
So Thorfinn realizes he is outmatched. He doesn't have the size. He realizes with how tall Thorkel is, all of his upper body weak points are too high up for him to stab with his daggers. And we start seeing his brain and his fight style evolve. He's like, okay, well, I can't go high, so I'm going to run and try and sweep under him. And he draws a kick out from Thorkel. And when Thorkel does, Thorfinn's able to try and he gets like a slash in on Thorkel.
It was pretty well put together. I've talked to people before about like guys who are way taller than me and stronger, and I was like, hey, if I were to fight you, like or someone like you, um, what would be the best way to take you down? And they usually respond with, oh, it's the key is like the legs or the knees. You have to like go for the knees, and that's exactly what happens here.
Thorfinn actually gets the drop on Thorkel at one point, where he's actually able to get what looks to be a clean swipe at Thorkel's neck with his dagger, only for Thorkel to just use his hand to block the blade, and the blade is sticking through Thorkel's hand. And then Thorkel just flings Thorfinn away. He's like, whatever, while the blade is still in his hand.
The guy just doesn't feel pain.
I mean, he completely no sells losing the tips of two of his fingers.
It's like it never happened.
He gets stabbed in the hand, and he just casually is like, "Ow, that hurt." Like, what? You're bleeding profusely.
And he loses two tips of the fingers, and it's like, whatever, let's keep fighting. Did anyone else feel very reminiscent? Did anyone else remember the OG Avengers movie when Hulk was just swinging Loki back and forth? That's how I felt whenever Thorkel was just sort of slamming Thorfinn back and forth against the ground.
I think it's a pretty good description.
Yeah, it looked painful.
You could replace the Hulk and Loki gif with Thorkel and Thorfinn, and not much would change besides the background. Askeladd realizes that they are completely outmatched, and he has his crew retreat without Thorfinn. And Bjorn's a little taken aback by this, and Askeladd's like, "Whatever, it's fine. Let's head out. Like, we're screwed. We're not risking our lives."
Again, I don't like Askeladd as much anymore.
This was a pretty cool moment. Thorkel is like asking Thorfinn about his history and everything, and Thorfinn's like, "I am the son of Thor's," and it sort of catches Thorkel off guard because he's like, "Thor's." Well, he's like, "I wonder if it's the same Thor's," because I mean, Thor's is just like a common name in these times. It's like Mike or John, like everyone is named Thor's. And in this moment of hesitation, Thorfinn flees into the river to escape Thorkel. And Thorkel's like, "Hey, great fight. Hope we can do it again." As he's gushing blood all over the place like it's Monty Python.
They show the blood squirting out of his fingers.
We learn that King Swain is not pleased that London has yet to fall. And he's saying, "This is taking too long. It's almost winter. We still need to capture so many other cities. Like, the King of London isn't even here anymore. Like, what's the deal?" So he says, "You know what? I'm leaving. I'll leave 5,000 of my troops, a quarter of my troops here in London to take London, and I'll leave my second son, Prince Canute, in charge." And we learn Ragnar, who's sort of like Prince Canute's like watcher, I guess you could say. Like, he seems to teach him some things. He's almost like a hand of the king to Prince Canute.
That's a pretty good description.
And Ragnar is not a fan of this plan at all.
Yeah, he seems like he's really trying to protect the prince because he knows the prince can't fight, won't
I don't know.
fight.
I was gonna say I don't know if it's a can't fight. I think it's more of a won't fight because like King Swain is like, oh, it's the teachings of the Catholics that are stopping him from fighting, and we see in the episodes like Prince Canute praying and getting some religious teaching. So I think it's not that he doesn't know how to fight. I think he doesn't want to fight.
That's
Which,
fine.
to be honest, I thought that was really weird because, like, none of the other Vikings seem to follow Catholicism. So, like, where did this prince get on board with that?
Maybe he just realized, well, I'm the second son, so the odds of me ever leading the country are slim. So I'm going to do whatever the hell I want.
Maybe. I just found that really interesting where he's
Oh,
like the only one.
I did too. We see the Danes leaving, and Thorkel is so disappointed. He's like, "Come back and fight me! Like, why are you leaving? We're still standing. You can't just accept defeat and fight me more, you cowards!" I just loved how Thorkel's like, "No, I want to keep fighting, no matter what."
Definitely the Monty Python vibe there. Get back here, I'll bite your kneecaps off.
What are you gonna do? Bleed on me? Askeladd wonders what happened to Thorfinn, minus Thorfinn getting his ass beaten by Thorkel. And we see Thorfinn show up and he's drenched from swimming in the river. And we learn that he has broken ribs, his shoulder was dislocated, and he has other injuries. And before he starts walking with Askeladd's crew again, he resets his shoulder. And I just winced in pain when he did that because I've dislocated my shoulder and I know how much that hurts.
Did you pop it back into place?
No, I did not. I went to the hospital.
Yeah, that's what the right thing to do is. I love how, by the way, in TV shows they always make it seem like every single person always knows. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like they're
They
like,
make it seem so easy. It's like, oh, just like grab like a towel and like pull and it'll just automatically pop back in.
yeah, every TV show's like that. And it kills me how a lot of shows make certain things look so easy that are obviously not easy.
And I know some people are able to like put their shoulder back in place, like reset it themselves. But usually if you're able to do that, it's because there's so much damage to your shoulder already that you need surgery for other things. Like when I dislocated my shoulder, I ended up finding out that I actually had a torn labrum. So it's like I've never really dislocated my shoulder prior, but from all the wear and tear, they're like, yeah, it just happened. Like we can reset your shoulder, and if you don't get surgery, it'll just keep popping out on you until you
Crap.
get surgery. Yeah, but like I remember back in SummerSlam 2016 when Finn Balor and Seth Rollins were fighting for the Universal Championship. Seth Rollins uh, hit a power bomb, like a barricade bomb, on Finn Balor, and actually separated his shoulder, and Finn put it back in place during the match.
Oof.
That's wild.
Yeah, and like at the end of the match, Finn won, and he was unable to hold up his arm to hold the title up because he's like, yeah, I reset it, but I was still in a shitload of pain. Askeladd's crew is walking and they're laughing. They're all joyous, like, yeah, we get to go fight some more and we get to go kill more people and get more treasure and yada, yada, yada. And Thorfinn is just like, how the hell are these people able to laugh? How many people can they kill? And he's sort of like having this inner monologue. And it's starting to sound a lot more like Thor's to end the episode.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe he's had dreams and stuff too, right? Where he like he's or visions where he's kind of like seen his dad in his head, so he has he I think he's very slowly his mind is coming around to like, why am I doing this?
Second guessing his decisions.
He has moments of second guessing, but he's still mainly looking for the vengeance and everything else lifestyle, as we'll see in episode 10. Now it is time for Mike's Beer of the Week. This week's beer is going to keep going with the Gen Con theme of earlier, and it is brought to you by Sun King, and it is their Barrel Berry Smash beer. Sun King is the brewery sponsor of Gen Con, and every year they have a beer tent at the food trucks from Wednesday through Sunday at Gen Con. Wednesday is the block party for Gen Con, where it's a limited amount of food vendors, but Sun King always bring it's like the unveiling of the new Sun King Gen Con beer for the year. So everyone's like, oh, okay, we're gonna get the new beer. And the new beer is there all weekend, and same with some of the other Sun King beers. But Wednesday is the only opportunity that you have at the food truck to get beers from the reserve line. And the Barrel Berry Smash is from the reserve line. It is a 14% bourbon barrel aged strong ale with notes of blueberry, strawberry, chocolate, and brown sugar. I have to say, this beer got way better as it warmed up. I took a sip when it was cold, and it's like, okay, you get some of the fruitiness of it. It smelled fantastic when it was both cold and warm, but when it warmed up, you really got the strong taste of the fruit. Like the the fruit profile really came out. On a fun note, this was actually the very first time I went to the Sun King Brewery in Indianapolis in my 5 Gen Con trips. It's only like a mile away from the convention center. So an easy Uber. They have the electric scooters in town as well. But we did a brewery tour bus ride where we went to 4 different breweries, and Sun King was the first one we went to. But overall, love this beer. Would drink the crap out of it and have a terrible hangover from it. The untapped average rating is a 3.97, and I give it a 4.5. Episode 10 Ragnarok. You just know that there's going to be shit that hits the fan with this episode when you see the episode title is called Ragnarok.
That's usually not a good sign.
End of the world.
It's like, if you know anything about Vikings, it's like, all right, Ragnarok means bad things that are coming. So the episode begins with Thorkel launching boulders across the water at Prince Canut's camp, trying to goad them into a fight. And it's like, how long has he been here just throwing boulders? Like, he has a massive pile. Like, it looked like a cannonball pile on a pirate ship with how it was, like, stacked and everything.
He probably just didn't sleep that night. He's just chucking rocks all night long.
He may not have slept for the last month since they left.
You know, some people skip stones to pass the time. This guy brings a whole new meaning to that.
So Prince Canut's men are getting restless. They're like, come on, we could take them. Like, we have the numbers advantage. We're just sitting here, like, let's go and fight. And Ragnar's like, no, we still have time. We can wait. Like, they're not attacking us, minus Thorkel throwing boulders at us, barely missing us somehow. No idea how he's able to throw it across a river from the distance he's at, but he can because he's Thorkel and he's awesome. And then we see Prince Canute praying, and Ragnar tells him, hey, we only need to endure like another couple weeks. Winter is almost here, and when winter is here, we can just head home. The battle will be over, and everyone will be a-okay. And then we learn Thorkel never knew Prince Canute was in the camp. He just assumed it was random troops. And when he finds that information out, he just has the biggest shit-eating grin on his face because he knows what he's about to do.
He has a plan.
Yeah, I love it. They did a really good job of animating his freaky grin. I liked it a lot.
He's a man with a plan. We then see Thorfinn, and it's like, okay, well, is Thorfinn dreaming of Vinland? Because the coloring feels very reminiscent of every time we have seen Vinland in a dream or has been discussed. It's very brightly colored. We aren't getting the browns that we have been getting in this show. Like a lot of greens, a lot of florals, a lot of bright, a lot of sun. But obviously Thorfinn doesn't really. Thorfinn, while it may be Vinland, Thorfinn doesn't realize he was dreaming of Vinland. He's like, "What was that place?" And he must not remember Leif talking about Vinland. And in this dream, we see Thor's telling Thorfinn that he needs to stop trying to avenge him and return home to to Helga and Ylva. And the dream ends as the village is being attacked by. At first, I thought, I'm like, oh, okay, it's English, but they don't really say who is doing the attacking in the dream.
It doesn't really matter. I guess imaginary enemies. Either way, Thor's dies again.
R.I.P. to a real one.
Again.
But I wonder if the dream of Vinland will become recurring for Thorfinn, or was this just like a one time thing?
Will all of his dreams take place in Vinland?
And will all of his dreams have him being a 6-year-old? I mean, it makes sense. Like he saw a very traumatic thing happen with his dad dying right in front of him, and he probably blames himself partially for it. So he's every time we have seen him dream, it's 6-year-old Thorfinn, and Thor's is there to like talk to him in some way. We then see the aftermath of Askeladd's crew's attack on Bath. I don't know.
I think it's
It's
Bath.
spelled Bath, but I didn't know if it was like it's spelled that way, but it's really not pronounced that way.
I think it is. Funny enough.
Maybe Askeladd's crew can get a bath.
Is it Saturday?
It's always Saturday. I heard Saturday night is all right for fighting.
I've heard that too.
In the aftermath, we see Askeladd's men are starting to fight amongst themselves. They're tired, they're hungry, they're worried that there won't be they're worried about the treasure and the loot. And some men are like, "Oh, it's fine. There's plenty of treasure. Like there's always next year like." And Bjorn doesn't seem too sure about this. Bjorn believes that the war is close to being over with the fact that the king of England fled, and he thinks that the war will be over within the next 6 months. I will say I really like how Bjorn has evolved over these episodes. Like when we first met him, he just seemed like that all brawn, no brain Viking. Like I'm gonna eat this mushroom. I'm gonna Hulk out and go ape shit. But the more we see of Bjorn, the more we realize how smart he is, and like how caring he is for Thorfinn.
Yeah, he's really taken a liking to the boy, and I think there are probably other members of the crew who also have taken a liking to him. But I think you know we don't know who in the crew here was there when Thor's died, but yeah, Bjorn has to know that they did him dirty. So I feel like he probably has a little compassion for the kid.
So the men are still fighting, and Ascot's like, "Ah, it'll be fine. Just let me know if one of them dies." And like, they're sort of asking like like how the fight started. And we learned that one of the crew called the other member of the crew a cattle thief. And we learned that must be one of the worst things you can call a person in this era, because when he was called a cattle thief is when shit hit the fan between the two of them.
Yeah, things escalated quickly.
You can steal all the treasure you want. As soon as you take a cattle, it's over.
We then see Thorfinn and Askeladd sort of sitting in some ruins of sorts, and we learn that they are the ruins of the Roman Empire. And Thorfinn tells Askeladd that he knows what he's been doing. Like he knows Askeladd has been playing Thorfinn as a fiddle, like trying to get him to do certain things so Thorfinn would do them to get his dole. And Askeladd's like, yeah, that's true. I'm not going to deny it. And he's like, why don't you just give up this doling thing? Like, why don't we just, like, we don't have to, like, do this. Like, you can stop trying to avenge your father. Like, you're becoming a great Viking and a great pirate. And, like, he's trying to be buddy buddy, and Thorfinn's like, no, I will never be your friend. Stop trying to be my friend. I will defeat you in our very next duel, and it'll be your end. And Ascot's like, yeah, I probably will lose to you one day because age catches up with everyone. Like, you may not defeat me due to skill, you may just defeat me because I'm old. And Askeladd's he's part trying to be a mentor still in his own weird way, and I think he's still trying to get under Thorfinn's skin.
I really like this scene a lot. Believe it or not, probably my favorite part of the like last couple episodes, like of these
I
two episodes. Probably my favorite part.
I agree with that 100%. But please
Um,
continue.
no, yeah, just the concept of time. Like talking about that sort of thing. And it puts everyone on equal footing. And yeah, I just think it's an interesting concept and extremely true.
Much as I dislike Askeladd now, this was a really good scene, and he is still trying to teach Thorfinn, life lessons. As much as he's still a big jerk, but he's still trying to guide Thorfinn. Like, well, look, dude, this is reality. Everyone's gonna get old. You're gonna get old. This is something you got to deal with. And they've been showing Askeladd aging from episode to episode. So it's almost like they're foreshadowing, like, well, the duel's coming and the end is coming for Askeladd because he's pulling his beard hair out. He's looking a little bit thinner. He's aging. So they're setting it up and they're telling you it's coming, but it's also teaching Thorfinn a lesson at the same time. So it was a really cool scene.
I really like how he used the Roman Empire as an example of like, yeah, back before the English took control of this land, or yeah, before the English took control of this land, there was an empire called the Roman Empire, and they were this great and powerful army, and their tactics and their culture and everything about them was more advanced than what we're currently living in. But time came for them, and here we are, and the Danes are about to take control of England, and the Roman Empire will just be forgotten. And like Askeladd has a coin from the Roman Empire from the ruins. So it was all really neat. Just like Askeladd talking about time.
Yeah, I like the reference to the Roman Empire was definitely really cool. I really love that the writer of the manga did so much history. I'm not like a history buff, but I certainly enjoy history. So I'm glad that they seemingly know what they're talking about and did a lot of research before going into this endeavor.
Askeladd then tells Thorfinn that the Catholics have a so called end of the world prophecy that'll happen in 20 years. And really, without diving too much into it, Thorfinn knows immediately what Askeladd is talking about, and he calls it Ragnarok, the end of the world.
Hey, that's the name of this episode.
He
Title
did it.
drop.
He said the thing. He said the thing. We then see a rider riding up to Thorfinn and Askeladd, and even though Thorfinn doesn't consider Askeladd a friend, Thorfinn is ready to attack immediately and protect him. And we learn that the rider is a messenger from Prince Canut's army. And we learn that Thorkel is now marching his army towards the main Danish army. And he's bringing 500 men with him. And that he defeated Prince Canute and Prince Canut's 4,000 troops with ease. And with so much ease that he captured Prince Canute. And I just absolutely loved how they showed Thorkel capturing Prince Canute. We we see Prince
Oh,
Canute
that
praying.
whole scene.
We see him praying, and all of a sudden we see the post of the tent being ripped out of the ground, and Thorkel just ripped the tent right out of the ground. He's like, "Found you!" Like
It's
it was
really
so
funny.
ridiculous. I
So
love
they're
Thorkel.
definitely leaning into the whole like anime thing here.
Absolutely, but I love it. So the messenger asks Askeladd, "Will you help? Will you go rescue the prince? And will you help King Swain?" And Askeladd says, "Ragnarok is coming, men, and then he cuts the head off of the messenger, which is like, I was very taken aback by that. It's like, wait, what the hell just happened? Like,
Yeah, I was like a little bit of gratuitous violence there. I mean, you didn't really
it's
have to do that. I mean,
well, it's like, is Askeladd saying, okay, well, I'm going to join up with Thorkel at this point? Is like this beheading a no, I will not help you? Like, it felt very out of the blue.
This is where the phrase "don't shoot the messenger" came from.
And we learn that Askeladd has a brilliant plan. They're going to rescue Prince Canute and then hand him over to the highest bidder. And it does a great job rallying the troops into fighting against Thorkel.
I feel like this is not going to go to plan.
What plan? Bjorn, Bjorn asked what the plan, and Askeladd's like, yeah, we don't have a plan. This can go many ways, but someone's gonna die.
Yeah, I was say I kind of see it going south for Askeladd and his crew.
specifically Askeladd, I feel like the dude has pretty much just like given up on life. You know, he's just like, listen, man, I'm old. My time is up. You know, just end it.
Yeah, he's seeming a little reckless right now.
Thorfinn comes in with jean shorts and a colored hat, a matching colored hat and shirt, and says, "My time is now. You can't see me. My time is now." And he tells Askeladd, "You can't see me."
That's exactly what happened.
Historically accurate.
We now know where John Cena got his gimmick from. It was Thorfinn.
Stolen gimmick.
It's in the history books.
Look it up.
What did you two think of these two episodes?
You want to go first, Sean?
Yeah. So obviously my favorite part was the part on the hill, and pretty much anything with Thorkel. But there was a lot of the in between stuff. I wouldn't say I was bored, but you know, I wasn't quite as gripped for these two as I was for some other episodes. So I'm hoping that I think the next two episodes are gonna have a ton of excitement.
Do you want to go ahead, Turtle?
Yeah, I was gonna say I hope the next two episodes have a ton of excitement because again, I found my interest kind of waning on these two. Um, like a couple episodes prior, there were highlights for sure. Thorfinn and Thorkel dueling was really good. The Thorfinn and Askeladd scene on the hill was really good, and just Thorkel being silly in general. But outside of that, I was kind of uninterested again. So I'm kind of hoping that it picks up a little bit here.
Thorkel was by far the best part of these episodes. He brought the comedy, he brought the action. He was just great. But even with how good he was, the best part of these episodes was the discussion, the talk between Askeladd and Thorfinn. I'm starting to wonder though. It's like, okay, we just got introduced a new character in Thorkel. I'm starting to wonder in these next two episodes, will Askeladd die, and will Thorkel become the new mentor for Thorfinn? Because like Thorkel has the history with Thor's, like they used to fight together. He's obviously a great warrior. Like, could Thorkel kill Askeladd and say like, "Hey, I was friends with your dad. Come with me. I'll teach you."
I mean, I have been wondering that if Askeladd dies, are we getting a new mentor character? Would be pretty cool.
And now it is time for the waifu of the week. Turtle, who did you pick this week and why?
For this week, I had to pick Thorkel because I don't think there's really another option, to be honest. At least for me, I felt these two a little slow and kind of boring, except for Thorkel. He is completely ridiculous, and I like it. So I definitely want to see more Thorkel in these episodes. And going off what you guys were saying, I would be kind of interested to see Thorkel be like a positive mentor to Thorfinn, as opposed to Askeladd being like a negative, manipulative mentor. So, yeah, Thorkel this week. He's too good.
Sean, who did you pick this week and why?
For me, while I did enjoy Ascalon's discussion about how time takes all things, I had to pick Thorkel. I mean, the feats of strength, the inability to feel pain, you know, the classic anime trope of outside of this, I'm on this team because I'm bored. Like all of it was fun. He definitely made these 2 episodes extremely fun. Like he was by far the highlight.
We're going to make it a clean sweep. I'm also going Thorkel, pretty much for the same exact reasons the two of you have already stated. Thank you all for joining us this week as we watch the Vinland Saga. We hope you join us next week for episode 21 of the Anime Banter podcast, where we will watch episodes 11 and 12 of Vinland Saga. Please give us a 5-star review on all platforms that allow reviews. If you are listening on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Turtle, do you have anything you would like to plug?
I say it every week. You can find me on my YouTube channel, RPG Treasure Trove. I sit down with a friend and play an RPG game couch co-op style, so if you're into that sort of thing, please check me out.
Sean, do you have anything you would like to plug?
As always, listen to the Demon Files podcast. We are going to be back this fall, so please get caught up before Halloween spooky season.
Spooky. The Anime Banter podcast can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you all for joining, and we will talk to you next week.